I felt it was only right to make this video wearing my Bo Burnham Inside sweatshirt, because if you really want to know about how the internet as a whole, but also social media, has affected the younger generations, you just need to watch it. I've made a video before about Gen Z being the most anxious, depressed, mentally ill generation so far, unfortunately. And I briefly mentioned social media in that video, but I didn't go too deep into it. And this video is going to be all about social media and how it's ruined Gen Z and millennials. Now, obviously, this is correlation. I can't prove any causation of is it really social media that is to blame for the problems that younger generations have now. I'm going to kind of go through my list of how social media has hurt us, and why us specifically, because every generation now uses social media. There's no generation that doesn't, but how it hurt us specifically the most, the worst. And we'll see if by the end I can talk myself into some sort of solution, but I cannot promise that, unfortunately. The first point I wanted to speak about is social media is a lot like an abusive partner in a relationship. Social media is not all bad, and it doesn't make you feel all bad all the time. If it did, people wouldn't use it. It's like how in an abusive relationship you feel like you love the person but you hate them too. Sometimes you love them, sometimes you hate them. But it's because you partly love them that you stay in the relationship. And that's what social media is like a lot. You stay for the good parts despite how bad it sometimes is. It jerks around your emotions and manipulates you. So it's not consistent. Social media isn't a reliable, you can't count on it, you can't rely on it to make you feel happy or feel sad. It's unexpected, and that can feel exciting, but ultimately it is bad because we as humans do better with consistent, stable presences, not something that is going to jerk you around and play with your emotions. This is why it's so hard to quit social media. They had to make it so that you would want to stay on it all day, every day. It has to be a mixture of very bad and very good. So sometimes it shows you like really horrible things that just make you feel terrible inside, but sometimes it's more discreet about it. It shows you, like, for example, I've noticed this, and I'm sure almost everyone has, in the algorithm, it shows you people that are similar to you, but a little bit better. It doesn't want to show you people who are a little bit less than you. It wants to show you people who are on a slightly higher level. It shows you celebrities as well, but celebrities have always been shown to the general public even before social media. It shows you regular people who are a little bit better than you because it feels a little bit attainable, like something to aspire to. Maybe if only you just buy a few things that that person has. And this brings me to my second point, which is the motive of selling. Social media wants to get to know you personally, not anonymously, and this was really interesting because the very early days of the internet and social media, you were not encouraged to give out personal information because the internet was so new, but social media was the first thing on the internet really that encouraged you to give your real name, your real age, where you lived, details about your life that usually you would not have shared with technology. That's part of the hook. It feels like it cares about you, the real you as a person, not like some chat room where you're using a fake username and not sharing real things about yourself online. Like Facebook and MySpace of the first social media websites, it felt like, oh, it really wants to know the real me, which is nice at first, but of course this turned into the motive of it wants to know those things about you so it can advertise and sell to you. If it knows your personal problems, then it can advertise solutions. Every advertisement should, at the baseline, have a goal of solving someone's problem. Whether or not the product is actually good enough to solve that problem or not, who knows? But if you let social media know of your personal problems, which it encourages you to do, one of the first things any social media website does right when you sign up is it wants you to tell it your interests. And, sometimes this is things you like, but other times it's your personal problems, like join a group about skincare for people with severe acne. Now that social media platform knows that you have acne, and that is very bad news. It seems like good news because they're like, well, we just want it so that we can sell you products that are for people who have acne, but it's just going to serve as a constant reminder that you have acne and you're unhappy with it and it's a problem. Once you tell social media these problems, it doesn't forget, unfortunately. And this is just bad for self-esteem on the whole, because social media believes that it can solve your problems by selling you things and trying to advertise a solution for every problem you have. But not every problem can be fixed by buying something, and this just encourages overconsumption and disappointment when the product that you bought off of social media doesn't work. Another problem with social media and how it has hurt younger generations is that it's turned into a news website. This wasn't the case in the very early years, but once more advertisers got involved and just people stopped posting. Like, I remember the early days where people would just post a Facebook status about what they were doing. Like, we used to post, like, oh, I'm working on the English essay. Anybody else? Like, send me a chat and tell me what you're writing it about. I remember those days. Those are long gone. Now, what people post is often links to third-party websites, a lot of times being news. So now this turns social media into having the same problem that news has, which is that news prioritizes and encourages bad, scary, doomsday headlines because those get more clicks than happy, lighthearted news. So social media just has turned into another news chamber that makes you feel like the world is turning to shit, and whether it is or it isn't, being constantly reminded of that through a variety of social media channels is not going to do well for young people's mental health. I talked about this a lot in my Why Gen Z and Millennials Are So Depressed video, and this is the too much awareness problem where that stems from. Older generations without access to social media and the internet had a limited amount of content about the problems of the world. We have unlimited content that is constantly being served up to us every day from multiple different platforms, and it's pretty much bad news all around. Without social media, there would be still these problems, but you wouldn't know about them. And whether or not you think that's a good thing, in some ways, maybe it is good that the younger generation is more aware of the climate crisis, because at least it gives us a chance to do something about it. The first step is awareness. It hurts people's personal lives and happiness and outlook on the future, so it's a double-edged sword. And now, I mentioned that I was going to talk about other generations on social media too, because Gen X and Boomers are no doubt on social media, just like Millennials and Gen Z are, but they joined as grown adults. And now, for both millennials and Gen Z, you're encouraged, and it's like the norm to join probably at the worst possible time, which is like puberty. I know I had a MySpace account for like a year. It was at the very end of days for MySpace, but then I quickly switched over to Facebook. But my first social media account was in the 7th grade, and I think that is like somewhat normal, maybe like 5th, 6th grade for Gen Z, or 7th grade. Around that time is when a lot of people join, and that's a really bad time to be exposed to this sort of content that identifies your problems, points them out, jerks around your emotions when you're already like in puberty and you just need some stability and like a constant good presence instead of just a wild presence that serves you up bad news all the time. It's just the worst time to get on social media, and yet the most popular time. Because older generations didn't get it until they were comfortable with who they are as a person, and which is not the case for teenagers joining social media for the first time. Another point I wanted to make is about social media's effect on relationships, both friendship and romantic relationships. The younger generations are lonelier than ever. People, instead of communicating how they did for older generations like Boomer and Gen X, when they wanted to speak to their friends or family or partners, it was either on the phone or in person. And now social media has offered itself up as a convenient, easier way to talk to people, which is through messaging on social media apps, either like DMs on social media or like Discord. Texting too. I know texting isn't social media, but it's related to this topic. And it is easier. It is more convenient. And people, especially Americans, are inclined to choose the more convenient option in all things, really. So when social media presents itself to that, we take it, and it serves our purpose, but it's not good enough. It's not as good as talking to people in person. It's not as good as hanging out with people in person. Being around another human being physically and like seeing them and being in their direct presence has, a multitude of benefits that you just can't get through messaging on social media. And it's no wonder that people say that they have less friends than older generations, and the friends they do have, they're less close with, because you're spending less quality time. I'm not super into the whole 5 love languages thing, but quality time, I can acknowledge, obviously, is very important in building a relationship. And, a lot of us spend time with our partners just laying like on the couch and on our phones, and then there's other times that you spend with your partner where you're actually speaking to each other, and one of those is clearly quality time and one of it's not. This is another reason that social media is so hurtful, is because even if you do spend time in person with your friends or romantic relationship partners, social media's addictiveness encourages you to spend time on social media even when you're with your friend in person. So you could be experiencing the benefits of that friendship, but instead of talking to each other or doing some activity where you could be getting the most out of this friendship and feeling the best inside, you're both on your phones on social media when you're with each other. So even when you are with each other, you're still not with each other because of social media. Also, social media has created a variety of ways that just didn't exist before to hurt people, which 2 that come to mind right away are ghosting and catfishing. These things just didn't exist before social media. You couldn't ghost someone before the internet. How could you even do that? Just gradually slipping away and stopping messaging, or just one day just completely stopping messaging someone back, and it hurts because it feels so distant, and you get no explanation because it's via social media channel. And catfishing obviously is a horrible way to hurt someone. That social media entirely created that problem, did not exist without like Instagram and Facebook. So that's another way to hurt relationships, those two ways. And the last point I wanted to make is just overall, social media has replaced activities from the past. Boomers and Gen X and older generations, without using social media in like childhood and teenage and early 20s, even into 30s, I guess, instead of activities that they used to do that were pretty much all better for mental health, we now do social media instead of those things. It's become a new form of entertainment and a way to pass the time, and it is more detrimental to your self-esteem and your relationships and your mental health than activities that older generations did before social media. Pretty much all of these activities involving leaving your house, just leaving your house and doing something, hanging out with someone, going to see a movie, going to a club, playing a sport, anything that involves leaving your house and going somewhere else is just automatically a better option for your mental health. Even if it's going out of your house with other people to do something that doesn't seem like it's a good thing, like you're gonna go to Walmart and create a ruckus and like be rebellious teenagers and smoke cigarettes, at least you're with other people in person and not alone in your bedroom. When you think back to the most fun, most exciting times of your life, they are pretty much, usually, I know for me, times when I wasn't at home by myself. It's pretty much with other people outside of your house doing an activity that is not social media. And because of social media, that going out is happening less because of how addictive it is and how it presents itself as a replacement for entertainment and a replacement for seeing people. That is just one of 10 reasons why it really has ruined younger generations. And I'm now at the end of all my points, and all I can really think of to suggest is if you can quit or limit your time on social media, do so. I know it's just so much easier said than done. I've been able to quit Facebook. I never go on there anymore, but I think the younger generations, even Gen Z, is not even bothering with Facebook because Facebook made the problem that I talked about in the very beginning of this video, which is it needs to be a mix of push and pull, good and bad. It needs to make you like feel amazing sometimes and sometimes makes you feel shitty, but because there's a mixture, you keep going back to Facebook. Facebook turned into too much bad and not enough good, so it was easy to give it up. It's harder for other platforms at this point. I would say you can try and like curate your feed and the content that is served to you, like by who you follow or who you subscribe to, but even that only does so much because the platforms will serve you content beyond that if they think there's a chance that you may click on it. So even that isn't gonna totally solve your problems. I just wanted to talk about my issues with social media and why I think it's part of the reason that Gen Z and millennials have so many problems. So I hope you agreed with some of my points or this was relatable, and thanks for watching.